The latest casualty in the path of cultural destruction by ISIS militants is the ancient city of Palmyra. But archaeologists and law enforcement sources tell CBS News what isn't being destroyed is being sold on the black market. Clarissa Ward and her team went undercover to see how ISIS makes money off valuable artifacts.
From Syria to Iraq, ISIS has demolished precious artifacts and archaeological sites. But out of sight and off camera, what isn't being destroyed is being quietly sold in a black market that reaches Europe and even the U.S. To get a first-hand look at this underground world, our producer posed as a buyer and made contact with Omar, a Syrian living in Turkey who offers looted artifacts to international buyers. He sent us images of coins and statuettes, jewelry and ancient books, likely a mixture of real and fake items, experts tell us.
Hi, Hamami.
He claimed to have mosaics freshly ripped out of the ground in Syria. We met in Istanbul and recorded our meeting on hidden cameras. We asked archaeologist Omar Al-Azam to come with us to help authenticate the mosaic. Two nervous young Syrians took us to a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town, and there it was. Wow. A beautiful Roman mosaic, nearly 2,000 years old, and as we learned later, potentially worth $100,000.
This is clearly ripped out from the ground, so this was originally in the ground.
In the ground?
Yes.
So undiscovered?
Undiscovered, yeah.
The smugglers told us it was one of 7 mosaics they had dug up in the ancient city of Apamea, one of Syria's most significant archaeological sites, seen in satellite photos in 2011, now pockmarked with the robber holes of looters. We moved to our van, where we were also offered Roman glass stolen from a tomb. The negotiating began.
I need a rough price. I need a ballpark figure.
$200,000 for the mosaic, they said, but that quickly dropped to $60,000. They were eager to get the illegal piece off their hands.
Clearly, you know, this is part of the tragedy of the war in Syria. Syria has such a rich history and such a rich cultural heritage. And
one that's being
totally pillaged and destroyed.
In Gaziantep, Turkey, near the Syrian border, we met Abu Walid, who told us he felt he had no choice but to loot and sell artifacts. There is no more work in Syria, he said. People have to sell artifacts or join an armed group. They are obliged to either fight or steal. ISIS is the primary beneficiary, making tens of millions through the illegal trade. The group issues licenses to looters to dig in their territory. If you find an artifact, you take 80% and ISIS takes 20%, he said. Or if the equipment belongs to ISIS, they take approximately 40 to 50% instead.
The illegal traffic in looted antiquities is buying the bombs and the bullets that are killing so many.
Colonel Matthew Bogdanos led the investigation into the looting of the Iraq National Museum in 2003. Now he prosecutes antiquity cases as an assistant district attorney.
In a surprisingly small number of steps, you can go from the looter in ISIS-controlled territory to the smuggler who gets it out of the country, to a gallery owner who begins preparing forged documentation, and then ultimately getting a buyer.
Do you believe that artifacts that are being looted by ISIS or under the authority of ISIS are ending up in London, here in New York?
Yes, we have seen evidence of that. We have seen antiquities from ISIS-controlled countries wind up in the market.
Clarissa Ward joins us now. First off, Clarissa, thank you and your producer, Jennifer Janich, for some incredible reporting. It's really, really fascinating and extremely worrisome. The expert in your piece says that these antiquities and the folks who are buying them are buying the bombs and bullets that are killing so many. So who are these buyers?
Well, that's just what makes it so tough, Vlad, because it's not like a straight nexus where you have ISIS selling these artifacts directly to European or Western or American buyers. What you have is a lot of middlemen who are in the middle And during that middle phase, they can fudge the provenance, they can forge documentation. But ultimately, the buyers, the Western buyers, where some of these pieces are ending up, they can be private collectors, they can be gallerists, they can even be some well-known auction houses. But as I said, it's that middle period that makes it so difficult to really pin down these cases and prove that these are ISIS artifacts or artifacts that have been looted from ISIS territory.
And Clarissa, is there anything that the United States can do to stem the flow of money to ISIS from the sale of these antiquities?
Well, it's very difficult, Vlad, because this is a cash market, and ISIS is getting that cash on the ground inside Syria at the first node along this process, so to speak. So how can the U.S. even begin to interfere or intervene in that case? It's very difficult. Also, it's important to remember we're talking about antiquities. Unlike drugs or guns or bombs, antiquities don't go off in a metal detector. You can't use a sniffer dog to try to find antiquities, and that makes it all the more difficult to try to rout out this industry.
Clarissa, we've seen ISIS destroy other ancient sites. Just recently, they executed Khaled al-Assad. He's the 82-year-old antiquities expert in Palmyra. It's interesting to a lot of people. They execute this man. They don't like these artifacts, which they say run counter to their thoughts on Islam. But then they profit from it.
Well, absolutely. There's an innate hypocrisy here. I think you have to understand when they destroy these artifacts in very bombastic fashion and then they put out videos with sort of soaring music, there are two things that they're trying to achieve. One, they're trying to show off their Islamic credentials by saying essentially Islam forbids the worship of idols, therefore we're destroying all idols. But even more so, I would argue, what they're really trying to do here is to shock people, to get the world's attention, to have everybody sort of wringing their hands at the sort of nihilism of this group, and that's exactly what they achieve by doing it.
Clarissa, let me just ask you, in terms of your reporting, were you worried? Were they suspicious of you, a European woman inquiring about this, or did it seem to them that you're the type of buyer that they normally run into?
To be honest, the men who we were dealing with seemed very inexperienced and quite out of their depth. And it's important to remind our viewers that these people are not ISIS. ISIS may be profiting from the trade, they may be running a lot of it, but the smugglers and looters who are on the ground doing this work themselves are usually not specifically members of ISIS or any armed group. In many cases, they're simply desperate people who are trying to make a living.
Clarissa Ward in London, our thanks to you and your producer, Jennifer Janich, for some incredible reporting. Really great.
Thanks, Vlad.